This is Luke Payson from Fighting Stance Media, bringing you a preview of USKA Fight Night, which is coming to you March 3rd at the Econo Lodge in Allentown. And it's going to feature a cruiserweight 195-pound amateur USKA rules belt fight between Sean Morgan and George the Relic Maybroda. First, before I get into the breakdown of who's fighting whom and all that previous stuff, I wanted to first give a shout out to all the gyms that are representing. There's 12 fights, so if everybody shows up and weighs in and everything goes well on that, that'll be 24 fighters. There's 16 gyms represented. One fighter is an independent representative without a gym. 4 gyms have 2 fighters apiece, and 1 gym has 3 fighters. I want to give a shout out to Stout Training Pittsburgh, coming all the way in from Pittsburgh. They have 3 fighters, and I was just talking to Andy Anderson, who's the manager there. He was saying how excited they are to participate in the show, and they run, Andy Anderson and Stout Training, Henzo Gracie and Pittsburgh. They do Iron City Muay Thai in the fall, and USKA helps regulate them. And they're also newly announced a June Pro Grappling style event out there in Pittsburgh. So they're really doing some things, and they're very excited to be on the card. The 4 gyms that have 2 fighters are Lombard MMA, Algeo MMA, High Voltage Gym, and Royal Striking. And Bill Algeo, who's the owner and main coach for Algeo MMA and Kickboxing, defends his 145 belt tomorrow night, which is the night before the USKA Fight Nights, March 2nd at the Tropicana in Atlantic City. So best wishes to him and all his pursuits in both MMA and Muay Thai. And now getting to the breakdown of the fighters. First, I must say apologies to every person's name I butcher. I'm going to be using some first names because some of the last names I'm just not familiar with them. And unfortunately, that's the way the cookie crumbles with amateurs. We don't get a lot of opportunity to know their names correctly. So I apologize ahead of time. We do have one fight that are both debuting. Jimmy Pro, which I have to say is a great last name, from Lombard MMA, is fighting Joe Sanderson. They're both debuters. I love watching debut fighters because you just never know what they're going to bring, what level of skill they have. And oftentimes there's a little bit of struggle against the adrenaline dump because it's their first fight, and that's no disrespect to any of the fighters involved. It's always exciting to see how debuters go. We also have Chelsea Villa versus Emily Marino, which is why I already apologized for the last name situations. Chelsea from Cutthroat MMA, Emily from 8 Limbs Muay Thai Academy, and that'll be a great fight as well. It's also always great to see in Muay Thai and mixed martial arts or martial arts in general, to see the women competitors. I think oftentimes you think women competitors, but many times they do a better job, or at least have more energy and more enthusiasm. And a shout out to Lisa Ettinger if she sees this, for an insane main event fight the last time, and to get her first pro win. It was incredible. So shout out to all the female fighters. We also have Raymondo Chavez from Algeo MMA. So there's one of Algeo's guys versus Mark Miseria, and again, I apologize. This is a lot of experience on this card. Raymondo is 2-2, and Mark is 3-0, representing Masonette's Thai Boxing Gym. Masonette's is a great Thai gym. They have the champion in the amateur Muay Thai division, also at amateur. So they've got a lot of skilled Muay Thai, and you can see here 3-0, 2-2. That's a lot of experience at the amateur level coming in. We also have Pat Dolan from Ground Control taking on Adam Kamoriai from 8 Limbs Muay Thai Academy. So a shout out to 8 Limbs. I did not keep track of the fact that they also have 2 fighters. So when I gave the intro and said there was 4 gyms with 2 fighters, there's actually 5 gyms with 2 fighters. So I apologize to 8 Limbs, but that'll be another great fight. Both those guys are 1-2. And so it's always interesting to know what people learn from their losses. Amateur fighting is not really about winning a lot, it's about learning a lot. And that's one of the things that as a coach or as a fan, you really want to cheer somebody on in their development, because if they do go pro, they want to get all their learning out, or at least a lot of their learning out, in the amateur divisions. So guys that are 1-2 really bring a lot of learning to it. We also have Gloria Rudikowski, the Inferno training versus Brittany Mishaham, Stout Training Pittsburgh. So that's one of the stout ones. Both of these ladies are looking for their first win. One's 0-1 and one's 0-0-1, either that one being a draw or a no contest. So I'm sure both those ladies want to get their first win. We also have Whitney Penanot versus Nell Diebel. And I've seen Nell fight twice. She's 17 years old. They had a great article on her for My Fighting Stance. My MMA Media, throwing my name out there again. I apologize, guys. But My MMA Media did a great interview with Nell. She's 17 years old, always brings the fight. She recently fought at the 2300 arena, and she'll be fighting Whitney. They're both tied up with their records at 1-1. We also have Jessie Gray, 2-0 from High Voltage Gym, taking on Chris Marriott, 1-0 from Stout. So here's another Stout training Pittsburgh. And when I was talking to Andy, he said they're really starting to develop their Muay Thai training and program. They started on the BJJ side, are really starting to bring that in. And you can see that with their 3 people on here. So both those guys are undefeated. 2-0 is Jesse. Chris is 1-0. Back onto a female fight. Gabriela Valdez from 302 BJJ versus Melissa Kramer, CPA MMA. And it's always interesting to see them fight. I think anybody from MMA gym can be deceiving, because sometimes people think MMA gyms, they kind of won't have the Muay Thai or the kickboxing experience, but sometimes MMA gyms are doing a great job of having a lot of breakdown skills, having their BJJ skills and their Muay Thai skills and their wrestling skills. So just because it says MMA doesn't mean they don't have a kickboxing or a Muay Thai background. It's a little throw out there. We also have Keenan Forsey from High Voltage Gym versus Trent Stump. Another experienced fight here, 2-2 versus 3-1, and Trent Stump is from Royal Striking. Again, it's always interesting to see how the people with some of that experience start to fight, start to tweak their skills. Also wanted to put out that the majority of the card is Muay Thai fights with a handful of USKA rules sprinkled in there. So it'll be both rule sets. Then we have Jordan Grenion Smith from Beltran, and I'm butchering that last name, Fighting Fit. Chris, I'm sorry. I love you. Your last name is, I guess, more complicated than I thought. We'll just say Coach Chris's gym, taking on Brandon Campbell, and he is the only independently trained. Big shout out to Brandon for training himself and coming in. They both have a lot of fights and are some of the more experienced fighters on the card, so it'll be a great battle between Jordan and Brandon. Then the second to last fight, we have Dwayne Shields, who's 3-2, 2-3 in MMA, coming from Martinez BJJ versus Angelo Lochito. I swear I read all these names before I did this. It's hard to keep all the names in my head. I apologize. From Royal Striking. So Royal Striking's been on there several times as well. So big props to them. As a fan, I always look for how the MMA guys transition. He obviously has 5 fights in MMA, so great for him, and best wishes to see how he transitions in from MMA. And then we are now to our title fight, which will be the same length as all the other fights, which are 3 2-minute rounds. That's Sean Morgan, who is a coach at Algeo MMA, versus George Mybrodo, who owns 2 of his own gyms, and he is representing his own gym, Iron Circle Martial Arts. Both these guys are 3-0, and so they bring undefeated records in there. A lot of unique striking styles on both sides. It will be very exciting to see how they do it. A big shout out to Irv and Jen and everybody that makes USKA work. And I hope to interview as many fighters either pre-fight or post-fight as possible. So when you see this handsome devil at the fight come up to me, I'd love to get some interviews with you. Or if you're a coach or anything, want to give a shout out to your gym, I'd love to start getting more interviews with everybody. Best wishes. See you all there at USKA Fight Night, March 3rd at the Econo Lodge in Allentown.